It's Dina and Kelly Hyman, and this is The Legal AF. And we are bringing to you yet another really disturbing and disgusting story around Trump, the White House, and protecting sex traffickers. This doesn't have to do with Epstein. There is a pattern here. This one has to do with the Tate brothers. ProPublica just came out with a report that said when the Tate brothers landed in the United States, as we know, they were facing sex trafficking charges, human trafficking charges in Romania. And they came back to the United States because Trump was in charge. And they said this was now friendly land for them. That in itself is very disturbing. But then they landed and their phones were seized by federal authorities. Again, they were literally on trial in the midst of this when they came. Well, the White House intervened on their behalf, specifically Paul Ingrassia, who has had many problems himself. There was that text exchange that came to light recently where he boasts about being a Nazi. This man who, scandal after scandal, really a disturbing person, specifically requested that the electronic devices be returned to the Tate brothers. And so they were within days. And this is the statement that he makes when he asks them to turn it back over. Evidently, he said to the authorities that seizing the Tate devices was not a good use of time or resources, and that the request was coming specifically from the White House. So just yet another major report from ProPublica. They have been just expose after expose after so many really important things. Now, Kelly, it's really wanted to hear what you have to say because you have literally represented victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking, and hearing the White House, with the power and privilege that they have, stepping in on behalf of the Tate brothers. Tell me what you think.
No one should be above the law, but of course, in a court of law, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. But the harm that happens to survivors of sex trafficking, human trafficking is everlasting. And the impact that it has on them is life altering. And so to hear that they were allegedly charged of crimes and they're not going to go through the court system is disheartening, because it takes a lot for a survivor to come forward and to tell their story, because when they go through the trauma, they're traumatized. And then to go through court, to stand up in court and to have their day in court and have justice, whatever that may be, for some is even more painful, but also rewarding, because they know that they're going to be heard. And so I hope that the survivors get the justice that they truly deserve in this matter.
And it's just another example of Trump giving somebody a pass in a way that greenlights them future action, don't you think? It's very similar to the pardons he's giving to January 6th people, to crypto people, so, white collar criminals are alleged or in the process of or convicted, the pardons he's passing out. Because here you have a situation where you're not even talking about them getting maybe a sentence Trump thought was too harsh, or they're just investigating. They were just taking the electronic devices. The number of reports, right, of people from a different country getting their electronic devices looked at to make sure they don't have Trump's social media posts, right? I mean, you hear that happening. You heard, famous comedians talk about that. Here, he's stepping in for an investigation. Federal authorities literally just looking at the electronic devices. If they don't have anything to hide, if they haven't done anything, fine, they can go free. It's not like they were getting arrested. It's to stop it at that point, to me is a signal that you are telling them and everybody else like them that they are free to do what they want to do, that this isn't about whether or not the sentence merits the crime or whether or not they got a, prosecutor that was too zealous, right? I mean, this is that we aren't even going to look into whether or not you are raping or trafficking or anything at all. And him doing that on top of the January 6th pardons, same thing, right? We are going to forgive a lot of these actions if you are, quote, on our side.
Transparency is key, and you see that it's really important that things are transparent, because if people are not accountable for their actions, then where is our democracy? Where is our society where actions have repercussions?
Absolutely. Transparency and this unprecedented, putting the thumb on the scale, unprecedented to have somebody who has this suspicion or, allegations. Like you said, they hadn't finished the trial because they were able to kind of flee here to the United States. To have such the thumb on the scale because you happen to be a Trump supporter, because you happen to donate money to him, regardless. And you put that side by Epstein, and we can't not talk about that, right? Because here we see him also with the power of the presidency call this a hoax, change his mind. What is he going to allow out? What is he not going to allow out? He's never seems to be on the side of the victims.
Hearing the survivors speak and telling their story, it's so compelling, because for some it's therapeutic, but then for also they're saying that this is not a political issue, that this is a bipartisan issue, that there needs to be transparency, that the survivors should know exactly what are in the files. And according to most polls, that a majority of Americans do agree that there should be transparency in regards to the files, so people know exactly what happened. And hopefully that will give the survivors some sense of justice for them.
Yeah, and your point about them speaking, right, and telling their story and then being called a hoax. Virginia Giuffre, in her book, Nobody's Girl, the memoir, is so powerful of a memoir. If you haven't read it yet, encourage everybody to read it. But she talks about how painful it was for her to speak again and again and again. She relived the trauma again and again and again. She did it when she had her daughter because she didn't want her daughter to live in a world like this. And then Jamie Raskin, who sent that letter to the DOJ recently, said that the DOJ was still in the middle of investigating. They had just gotten the Maxwell conviction. They were still investigating, and Bondi asked for the files and basically closed the investigation. And so all of those interviews, all of them speaking out, yes, they got some justice with Maxwell, although now that she's in a cushy prison, it doesn't feel like it anymore. But so many of those interviews became nothing when they closed that. And then for Trump to call it a hoax on top of it, despite the courage and the bravery, and we see them in their press conference still speaking out. I mean, wow, amazing. And for all the women involved in the Tate brothers, and hearing and seeing what the White House is willing to do without even having them be properly investigated. The travesty of the victims, their stories, and the trauma just being shut down here by the Trump White House is really disturbing. So we will definitely keep you updated on this in the Legal AF channel. Kelly, thanks for breaking this down with me and all the great work that you do on behalf of the victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking. And, hopefully they will get some measure of justice, at least here, the Epstein victims.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.